All right, welcome to this week's Motivational Monday. I'm always talking about the importance of who you hang out with, who you listen to, who you let in, so to speak, into your space, into your energy. And it's super important. It can't be overemphasized enough. I'm going to let you take a peek at an interview I had because sometimes the interviews go on the podcast and they're just audio, of course. And I wanted to be able to meet up front in person Krista Mashore. Because if there's ever a motivational story that I can share with you guys that maybe just one of you goes, that's me, I can do that. When you hear what she came from and what she developed and what she's doing now, it is nothing short of absolutely amazing. So enjoy the interview and hopefully you'll get not just a nugget or two, but some hope, some confidence, and some motivation to go out there and crush it. We'll see you, I hope, at the QLS Live event. Go to qlslive.com. See you soon. All right, Krista, with that as a backdrop, welcome to the show. And I know we just left your show, so mention that, and that's a writer downer for everybody.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Chris. I just interviewed Chris. It was fire. It was on my podcast called Fired Up with Krista Mashore. And I gotta tell you, I learned so much. I didn't even know what to ask you because it's so foreign, but so great. I feel like any agent or lender needs to know all the stuff you taught.
Well, let's dive into your stuff because the wicked smart listeners know that I love having guests on that have been around the industry, right? And you got some serious, I wrote down some things I want to definitely ask you, and then we'll take it wherever it goes. But maybe give a little backdrop behind the green curtain, how you landed here after 20 plus years in the biz. Like how'd you get into it and how'd you land here?
Yeah, so I used to be a teacher. I taught third grade for 6 years and my daughter got sick. And so I left being a full-time teacher to play real estate. My goal was just to do a couple deals a year and hopefully make as what I was making as a teacher. And my husband at the time was having an affair. So I ended up having to dive into real estate full force because he ended up leaving me with 2 daughters and a brand new mortgage payment and empty bank accounts. So I had to dive in like crazy.
Well, okay, so that's pretty whether it's that bad or someone went through COVID, but people are going to be faced with that same stuff. And maybe some listeners right now I'm curious, if you don't mind me asking, you said you just want to make what you made as a teacher at first. What, do you remember what that was? I'm very curious.
Yeah, so I made $60,000 as a teacher who taught for 6 years with a master's degree. I made that in a year. My best month in real estate, I made over $360,000 in commissions in 1 month.
That's where I was going to go, to give me the monthly. Yeah, love it. Love it. And I know you've done, because we just run your show, 2,300 plus transactions. Did I hear that right?
Yeah. As a solo agent, I've always pretty much worked as a solo agent, primarily as a listing agent. My first year in real estate, out of pure I sold 69 houses. People always ask me how I did that. And it was honestly out of desperation. I really had to, quite frankly. But also I remember specifically, and this I've done my entire career, and this will help anybody right now. And especially it's a really good time to understand this because a lot of people I think are in this position. Is I looked at what the areas of opportunity were, meaning what is somebody that's really successful doing and how could I emulate what they were doing and maybe even do it better. And then I looked at areas outside of the real estate industry and thought, okay, that's working outside of real estate. How then, and that's mostly what I did. How can I take what's working outside of the real estate industry and apply it to the real estate industry? And I'll give you a couple of examples.
Yeah.
So this is going to age me, right? And to show way back when. So way back when, 21 years ago, we would have there'd be a real estate sign and people would put a flyer box on there because there was nothing digital. So if there even was flyers, which was probably only about 25% of the time, it'd be like a 1-page black and white flyer. So what I did was I did 4-page colored brochures. And then I put a CD, on the sign with a little flyer box for the CDs with my logo on the CD with that had 60 or 70 pictures in it. So just something small like that.
Different.
And then every time I sold a house, I took a 20% budget and I put it towards marketing because there's a lot of research about marketing. The more you spend on marketing, the more that the rewards of it are going to drastically help. So for example, if you spend 5%, it might equal a 10% increase in your business. But if you spend 20%, it will equal a 70% increase in your business. So I learned that really quickly and did things way back when I advertised on local television on Comcast. I put myself on the buses. I just made sure that I was absolutely an authority very quickly in real estate, like you had talked about earlier.
Yeah.
and so perception was reality. And so I also even advertised like in the movie theaters, right? And so everybody else was doing like a picture of themselves, like, and I did a video. I hired a guy that did commercials. He charged me, I think it was like $3,000 or $6,000 for a 30-second commercial, and then I paid $3,000 a month to be on the movie theaters. And people will still tell me, I see you at the movie theaters. They don't say I saw, they say I see you at the movie theaters, and I haven't been on the movie theaters for like 10 years.
Wow. Wow. Now, for the Wicked Smart listeners, you got to go to YouTube and catch Krista's energy, because you missed what she just did. So I'm going to encourage you to go to YouTube and make sure you catch this interview there too. Krista, the emulating, you said at the very beginning of that answer. So did you go hire mentors? Like, talk about what you did with that, and then how important is that?
Oh my gosh. So there was a gal in my area who was dominating. I mean, she absolutely crushed it. And so I watched her very closely, and I tried to emulate what she was doing as closely as possible. I didn't hire, this sounds kind of conceited, but I did very well very quickly, and I was really into marketing and being innovative. And so I had a hard time finding a real estate coach that could coach me well enough. So I ended up hiring coaches outside of the real estate industry. And I will tell you that there's a book actually called Who Not How. And there's nothing more important than finding the who to help you figure out the how, because you can Google anything, right?
Right.
So by hiring coaches and mentors, and I've spent over $1.2 million in the past 5 years and 5 months hiring different coaches and consultants, paying as much as $150,000. Actually, gosh, one coach I paid close to $300,000 to. But that coach, in real estate, when I left real estate 5.5 years ago, I was making about $1.8 million in GCI a year. It took me 14 years to hit the $1 million mark. By hiring, when I left real estate to become a coach, I hired a really good coach, and he helped me get to $1 million in 11 months. And now I'm at a point where I'm doing, I average over $1 million a month, like in revenue coming in, or contracted sales, not like that would be like an agent would say kind of a commission. They would make $1 million worth of commission by hiring the right coach.
Right.
So I don't think there's anything more important, because you learn all the things like that you shouldn't be doing. You learn all the things that you should do. I mean, if you read the book from Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, he talks about having a mastermind, right? Like 2 minds become 3. And he talks about how important a mastermind is. And he says, like, when you have a mastermind, which is, i.e., hiring a right coach and being in that kind of an environment, you're taking the experience, the income, the energy, the resources, the time from that person. So it's been incredible for my growth, and I'll be doing it forever. I mean, I still have coaches. My coaches have coaches. Smart, successful people know that you need a coach.
So you're primarily now, you help the realtors, but and that's your coaching business. You exploded that, and you'd already done a whole run as a realtor. What was either one of them, what was the most challenging part of the build?
Oh man. It's been so long for the real estate aspect of it. And I think back then the most challenging part was that I was devastated from the divorce, and I had to put on a smile and just take action, even though I was like crumbling inside, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And even though looking back, it was the best thing that ever could have happened. When you're going through it, you don't feel that way. My family was ripped apart and I felt horrible. But the second part, I mean, it just takes time. So for example, I've been coaching, now I actually coach real estate agents and lenders, but I also have another business where I coach entrepreneurs. I teach them this whole $1 million a month strategy that I have. And the hardest part is the growth. So in other words, I mean, you have to understand that when you see somebody and you say that they're an overnight success, there's no such thing. I mean, people will even tell me, oh my gosh, it's like, you're just everywhere. And I'm like, well, it's been 5.5 years. I feel like finally, after 5.5 years of me spending millions of dollars on marketing, I mean, literally millions of dollars on marketing, a lot of resources, it's like, it's just now hitting, right? So it isn't like all of a sudden, it's all of the work from the past 5.5 years. It's all the resources, the time, the energy, the things that I gave up on. And it was wanting to give up and not seeing the results, but knowing that my efforts have to be going somewhere, right? And so it seems like all of a sudden, all these great things are happening that you would think like are all of a sudden. And even my team said, all of a sudden, and I go, are you kidding me? This has been 5.5 years of us blood sucking tears and crying in the bathroom sometimes.
I
From it
agree.
not, yeah.
Okay, so here's really cool. You said that because you and I had no discussion about what this was going to be about. And I love your opinion then on the investor or realtor listening, going, yeah, I was frustrated. I didn't do a deal in my first X days. Like I'll get people to say, I didn't do a deal in the investment world in 6 months or 4 months. And after what you just said, they should have been awakened. But I'd love you to talk directly to them and go, here's what you should know about time and the gratification. And any thoughts on that to grind it out?
Oh yeah. So I'll give you an example. I'm sure you get the same thing. This has happened so many times I can't even count. Well, like I'm a big mindset person, and so I didn't mention this, but I haven't lived at home since I was 13. It was like I lived in two families. I had this great, loving parents, mom and dad, and then I also had a very abusive mother. So when I turned 13, I started running away, and then I ended up in juvenile hall, and then a group home, and then foster home. So I haven't lived at home since I was 13. So I've really had to be a master of my mind. And it's even more so for me because when you have physical abuse from a parent, there's a lot of like self-worth issues and things you have to kind of deal with, right? So for me, it's like I know that my mindset is more important than my skill set, and that if I can keep my mind right and know that like the things I say to myself and the things that I'm doing, I'm always talking, I'm always complimenting myself, I'm always celebrating my successes. Success breeds success. What gets celebrated gets replicated. I try my hardest not to let like kickbacks last more than a few minutes or a few hours sometimes, but not days or weeks or months. And you have to know this. I've had so many students say, like, I don't see it yet, Krista, it's not happening. And I will tell them, you just keep going. Just keep going. Everything you're doing, like what you're doing right now, it isn't working because you're doing it. It can't not work. It's just a matter of when it all kind of happens. And so many times it's like, oh my God, I have 12 listings coming up, or this is the best month of my life. I just today on today's call, my students were like, I was like, hey, right now it's 6 months. We're at the 6-month mark. How many of you have met your goals? Right. And how many of you haven't? And so it was like 50-50. Half are like, no, half are like, yes. Some are like, I've done better. And so I had them get on the ones that had met their goals. And I said, okay, tell me what you were doing. All of them, like I'm doing the mindset, I'm doing my daily sheet. The daily sheet has to do with like gratification, visualization, celebrating your successes, writing out what you're thankful for. The things that you would not think have anything to do with success, but have everything to do with success, right? Because all those little things I have them do, there's like scientific brain research based upon how it helps. But I will just tell you, you have to just keep going. The only way that you can quit and not succeed is if you quit. I mean, that's really true because all the things that you're doing, you're like planting the seeds. It's kind of like when I was a real estate agent and I'd show up to somebody's house and they'd have like, 15 of my like, flyers on there. And they're like, I've been watching you for 5 years. And, and it's like, oh, really? It's like the work that you do here, you don't see till here. The work you do here, you don't see here. I can keep going, right? But most people, because they don't see it right here, they just stop. And that's why most people aren't successful. It's because they just give up.
Huge nuggets. That's why I'm so glad you went in that direction. You said I'm a mindset person. That's what you said at the very beginning. And I can't agree more. When I had, and I want to ask you a question about it, I had Brian Tracy on a few years ago on my show, and he said, like so many do, yeah, mindset's like 95% of your deal or 98% of your deal. Do you have a daily thing that you do in the mindset world then to keep stacking and feeding?
Absolutely. Okay, I'm glad you asked that. I'm a freak about this kind of stuff. So there's this thing I do. I made this up. It's called Thrive. Okay, so
a reminder, everybody, you got to go to YouTube or you're not going to see this. Go ahead, Krista.
Yeah, it's called Thrive. And basically, there's something called the Pomodoro technique. And basically, it shows you how you can get 16 more hours out of your week by time blocking and being super hyper focused on one thing. And so what I do is like first thing this morning, I did this thing called Thrive. And Thrive is an acronym for, the T stands for giving thanks. And this is like really quickly. So I'll just give thanks for something really quick, right? The H is for like happy. So I'll literally like start to laugh out loud. And then what happens is you laugh, you make yourself laugh like I'm doing right now. You can't help but smile. That releases dopamine. Also, when you give thanks, which is the first thing, like the research shows that by showing gratitude, that you have up to 2 weeks of positive stuff that happens in the brain just from showing gratitude. Then the R is for resourceful. I tell myself that I have anything and everything that I need to be as successful as possible and to succeed. The I is for immediate, like take immediate action. If you look at my wall, it says do it now, right? Do it now. I mean, I take very quick action and I'm not afraid of failing. I think most successful people, and in fact, that's one of also the success traits from Napoleon Hill, is successful people, they take action quickly.
Yeah.
Money has a need for speed, wealth has a need for speed. So a lot of people are just getting ready and they're aiming, but they're not firing. I like to fire forward and fire fast. And yes, I fail a lot, but you can change and you can adapt, you can modify, you can adjust when you're failing. But if you don't start, like people are always getting ready, oh, I'm just ready for it to be perfect. It is never going to be perfect. So just take immediate action. The V is for visualize. I visualize myself succeeding. I cannot tell you there's actual research on the neurotransmitters in the brain. It doesn't know the difference between what you see and what you're actually doing. I mean, it's crazy the amount of studies on that. And the E stands for expect. I expect to get the success that I want, and I'm enthusiastic about it, and I have a lot of energy behind it. So that's called Thrive, and I try to do that at least 2 or 3 times a day. You can do it. It's like literally a 1 or 2 minute thing, all it takes. And by just doing that, like you're training your brain to work for you. And I'm, like I said, a total mindset person. So anything I can do to help my brain like go to the right direction, I do. This energy comes from doing that. It's not like a natural thing. I actually had surgery on Monday. And so I'm not like my normal self, but by doing that, like it got me back in my feeling good. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, wait, so you usually have more energy?
I'm on the same. I just choose. It's a choice I make. It's a conscious choice. Some people might think I'm on drugs, but it's just, I don't know.
No, it's awesome energy. That's why I couldn't wait to have you on. I'm going to make sure that's in the show notes because they need to study that and live like that. Oh, before I forget, Krista, we'll put it in the show notes. Speaking of that, can you give them, you have a link to give them for your virtual event. They got to catch this energy. They got to be around this. And I'm going to ask you about that in a minute about exposure. So give them that link first.
So it's KristaMashore.com/smart real estate. So that's Krista with the K, and then Mashore, MASHORE.com/smart real estate. And that will take you to a 3-day virtual event with me where I teach you how to be the online authority, how to not only create great content, but actually make sure it gets seen, and then how to create the resources that help you convert, pretty much like makes it impossible for people to say no to you.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the digital marketing a little bit, just because I know it's your zone of genius. So how important is that? How did you get into it? Like give you a little background and then kind of fast forward to today.
So when the market crashed, I was not fortunate enough, I worked hard, but I had like 13 asset management companies and banked all the way from like, I had HUD, Wells Fargo, Wachovia, Freddie Mac. I had all these foreclosure accounts, and that was great until the market got better, which was great for the world, right? Yay, the market got better. Unfortunately, I went from selling like 169 homes my best year down to like 12 because all of my asset management companies, it seemed like almost overnight, like they all went away. And so it was almost like a lot of you are in right now. You're in a position where the market's changing. There's limited inventory. The interest rates are insane. People are just like, what the heck, right? So you're seeing a lot of agents leave the industry. I was at a point in my career where nobody knew who I was. I hadn't been marketing myself whatsoever. It was as if I was starting from ground zero as a brand new agent. And I was like, oh crap, I've got to make a change. So what I did was I started looking at what the outside big companies were doing, like Google, Whole Foods, McDonald's. And what they were doing was they were basically great marketers, right?
Yeah.
If you think about during the Super Bowl, the Big Bowl, I don't think I can say Super Bowl, but they $7 million for a 30-second commercial. And the reason why people would pay that is because they know that attention is currency, right? The more attention you can get, the more money you will make. So they wanted to have as much attention on them as possible. So I realized, okay, I need to switch what I'm doing. And so what I decided to do was I decided to dominate 2 different neighborhoods that were like adjacent to each other from this one street. And so I decided to be the best marketer of the area, to like anything and everything that had to do with those neighborhoods that I was going to talk about. I created video content. I started doing flyers every 12 days where I would be in their mailbox and I'd give them a market update. I'd have on the back of the flyer, I'd have like what was happening in the area, coupons to local restaurants, things to do. And I just like dominated these 2 neighborhoods. And within 12 months, I was back up to over 100 homes a year. And then I just started taking that exact same philosophy and doing it to other neighborhoods. So now it's even easier than back then, because back then, I learned to master social media back then. That was right when Facebook started doing Facebook ads. So I started mastering Facebook. Nobody else was doing it. I decided to utilize video. I spent a lot of money back then for what now you can do for pennies, I would spend, thousands hiring a videographer to do. And now it's so much better because now I create funnels. So I have community funnels. Like for example, I need to do it this week. I'm sorry to remind me, but since it's the 4th, but every month I will do a video of each of these different communities where I'll do a quick market update specific to that neighborhood. And I'll just use Zoom or Loom and I'll show what's happening in the neighborhood. And then the whole page for each neighborhood is about that neighborhood, right? Now, the cool thing is a lot of these neighborhoods sort of, like I can use the same, restaurant video or thing to do video for 3 or 4 of the community videos because they're close enough, right? So it's a matter of creating a community funnel where I talk to a buyer or a seller and I'm like, hey, you're interviewing multiple agents. That's awesome. Do me a favor, go to this link. And so it's going to really educate you as to why I'm the authority in the neighborhood. And it's like Deer Ridge community, Shadow Lakes community. And it's all about the whole neighborhood. Everything's up to date. And that has just been a game changer. Like literally today on my call, one of my students was like, I've got 5 new listings. 3 of those listings come directly from my community funnels. And she just started her funnels 90 days ago. So again, it's all about being the authority and then making sure, think about it. Like somebody tells you, hey, I'm interviewing multiple agents. And you say, great, go to my community funnel. Like no one else is doing that. All of a sudden you're the authority. And then on that same video, on that same page, like there's a book, I'll show you. There's like a book, like what to expect when selling your Deer Ridge and Shadow Lakes home. And it's not one of those cheesy ghost written books. It's all about digital marketing, what you should ask your agent. So everything is specific to that funnel. And now it's like the competition pretty much becomes irrelevant. And there's also like 20 videos about selling, tips and tricks on selling. And so it just positions you as like the go-to expert. Now you could do the exact same thing, Chris, like in like for what you do, right? Like if I was a lender, and I actually have another friend who does similar to what you do, and I'm like, why aren't you teaching this? Why aren't you teaching your lender, your investors to create tons of content, to like, put it on YouTube, to create a funnel about it, like start developing the know, like, and trust, because I would assume to think that most people are very weary about you guys, right? They're thinking that you might screw them over, or that that they're nervous. So the more that you can gain trust before you get there, I call it winning before you arrive.
Yeah.
Right? Like there's something called a parasocial relationship where research shows that when you see somebody on the other side of a TV show, or like you, you probably see people and they come up to you and they're like, act like they know you, right? They're talking to you. And most people are a lot just in your ear, and they see you somewhere and they want to hug you and they're like your best friends because they feel like they know you because they've developed a relationship with you. It is the exact same thing with your community. Imagine if nobody else is doing that, and they are, when somebody wants to sell not the traditional way, or needs this extra help because they are being educated and talked about and on a regular basis, they're the authority, they're going to win.
Yeah, no, I love it. So that's why they need to come to your event, correct? One of the many reasons.
Exactly how to do that. Yes, 1,000.
Okay, so Krista Mashore .com/smart real estate.
Yes.
Talk about the exposure, not just of that event, but I wanted your logic on events in general, and then we'll wrap up. Just exposure, being there. Like I used to do it every quarter when I was an agent, even, never mind an investor. What's your thoughts on that?
Oh yeah, I think it's you need to absolutely do it. We have like virtual seller seminar. We teach people a virtual buyer seminar, virtual credit repair seminar, but also doing it in person I used to do first time buyer events. I would do seller and buyer, and I'd always have the seller be first, so that when the buyer, and I'd have them kind of overlap, so they would see that I had buyers, and I would tell them, hey, like I even have buyers, right? So yeah. They would see that I was educating them. And I don't think there was ever one event that I did that didn't pick up at least one client. And even if only like 3 people showed up, I would still pick up one, whether it be them or from a referral. Might not be that immediately, but it would be 6 to 12 months. I think they're very important.
Everything you're saying is outside the box, basically. Outside the box. How else can they reach you, Krista? And then I'll ask you to share something I may not have asked you yet. But how can they reach you other than the link for the event? How else can they get you? You can share anything you want.
Yeah, give all my socials, Krista Mashore. I wrote a book that I have a real estate book, but I'd rather tell people about. It's called Stop, Snap, and Switch. It has nothing to do with real estate or lending, but it's all about brain research and how you can train your brain to work for you. This is probably my favorite book I've ever written, even though it's not my moneymaker. It's my passion project. So they can get that if they're like, because I feel like that's like the main key. And then obviously, like you said, you can go to KristaMashore.com /smart real estate. But yeah, so what would you ask? I don't know. I think we've said it all. I just think, attention is currency, and the more attention that you can get on yourself, a lot of people are worried about how they look or how they sound or their accent or their nose or they're too skinny or they're too big. And I just got to tell people that's who you are. And, don't worry about being perfect. Just get out there and take action. People will love you. Or they won't. And so you don't want everyone to like you, repel the people that don't like you. Like for me, I'm a lot, right? I've got a lot of energy. Some people can't handle me. And some people are like, man, I love it. And I'm attracting the people that I like, and that's okay. Just be yourself and be authentic, and don't worry about being perfect. And you will get, attract your crowd, and try to be unique. The more unique you are, and the more that you, as you said, Chris, think outside of the box, the more you will sell, because, most agents are a commodity. When you're a commodity, you're replaceable and you're interchangeable. It's like gas, cell phone service. It's like you're looking for the cheapest option. So do things differently. And if you do things differently, commission won't even become a question. It'll just be like, where do I sign?
I love it. I love it. I love your energy. Thanks so much for being on. I know we tried to do this a few months ago and finally here. So thanks a bunch, and thanks for bringing it. What are the dates in the event? I know they're going to see it, the link, but what are the dates so they know?
It's every month. So I have it every month. It's virtual event. You can do it right from your own home. So if you can't make it, actually next Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, but if they can't make it, then it's once a month, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday from 8:30 to 8 to 2:30 Pacific time.
No reason to miss it then, guys. Thanks again, Krista. Awesome chatting.